Please welcome the moderator of the next session, Vladimír Bilčík.
A idem úplne na koniec. Úplne na koniec. Čiže tu. Dobre. Very good morning, everyone. My name is Vladimír Bilčík, and I will guide you through this really exciting panel discussion on a key issue connected to really challenges and vulnerabilities in Europe, and that's water. Water is something we use daily, but water is something which is becoming increasingly scarce, which is becoming also increasingly difficult to manage. And water is something which may also threaten the well-being of all of us if there is too much of it, and we need to manage it. We need to manage it as a consequence of the climate change. We need to manage it as a consequence of a huge investment gap. We need to manage it because it is an important geopolitical issue and relates to a number of cross-border questions across Europe and beyond. And I'm very pleased that we have a distinguished set of panelists to help me guide you with what the European Union, the European institutions, but also the private sector are going to do and are planning to do to help us become more resilient when it comes to managing water. I'm very pleased to welcome from my right the Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Kyriacos Kakouris. Very warm welcome to you, and very pleased to have you here on stage in Prague. I'm also very pleased to welcome Jan Dusik, who is from the Czech Republic, but more importantly is the Deputy Director General for Climate Action in the European Commission. And last but certainly not least, we have Vazil, Hudák, the CEO and the President of the H2O Fund. So we have the European institution, European Bank, and the private sector. And really, the key question is, how do we safeguard this precious resource? How do we make sure we can use it and conserve it effectively? And how do we make sure that we manage it? Because it is becoming increasingly a problem, not just as a consequence of the climate change, but this has become one of the driving factors behind the Commission's Water Resilience Initiative, which the Commission is launching. And let me ask Mr. Dusik to help us with the introductory statement of what the Commission is planning to do. Then we'll pass it on to the bank, and finally we'll get the private sector going. I also want you to get engaged. I'm very happy to get anybody from the audience if you raise your hand to have a question, but please use the Slido application. We'll be happy to take questions also from Slido, and we have almost 50 minutes for this panel, so let us engage, let us explore this issue in depth, and let me ask to pass the floor to Mr. Jan Dusik. Very welcome, and please tell us what the Commission has in store for us and how can we safeguard water and become more resilient when it comes to this issue across Europe.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. A great pleasure to be at GLOBSEC for my first time, but of course not the first time in Prague, which used to be my home city. I came from Brussels, which normally is famous for a lot of rainy weather, and I got used to bringing an umbrella with me all the time in spite of a sunny day. But I can tell that in Brussels yesterday it was steaming 32 degrees centigrade, and it has been a very unusually dry spring. And I think that this is something that we will have to get used to in Europe, that the weather patterns as we knew it are less and less predictable, and this will impact the entire society. And we will be talking about water security, water resilience, but obviously this connects to the life of the society. There's no life without water, and water is connected to what we eat, how we get around, everything. So very pertinent and very pertinent in the era of climate change. We are not awaiting what will be the impacts of climate change, but we are already living the impacts, and we will be living through them for the next decade. So this is something that we need to tackle seriously. Now, the subtitle of the water resilience strategy, which was adopted by the Commission recently, is water security for people, economy, and environment. And I think that is quite telling that we need to secure water for multiple purposes, and we need to find a good balance between those uses in order to prevent tensions, in order to have that resource available, and to ensure that we can plan better. The management of water is not a new thing. I remember when many years back, when I started my professional career in the Czech government, I was studying the European water legislation and preparing the Czech legislation to be aligned. So it is a complex body of legislation that exists, but in spite of all the improvements and investments, we can see that in the current era, with the current pressures, we need to do more. We need to be more strategic. We need to embrace new technologies. We also need to reflect the risks that are coming. If you look around the world, you can see that there have been many conflicts around water, and I could give examples from every continent, like Egypt, the conflicts on Ukraine, the Kakouris dam that exploded, that was destroyed. There are tensions even on the Swiss-French border. I remember that especially dry summer, the Swiss were bringing helicopters to neighboring France, taking the water from the lake and transporting it back to Switzerland illegally. So you can imagine that there are all sorts of tensions, even in the developed countries and in Europe, that we need to tackle. We need to prepare for a world which will be warming. Definitely, already now is warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius, and if you are sitting here in Prague, you might say, well, actually, it's not a big deal because we are the sea level rise is not so disturbing, and maybe we will have warmer winters and better yields for the crops. But it's not that simple, and our climate risk assessment shows that the level of warming in Europe will be double of the global average. So we need to get prepared for a climate which will be 3 and more degrees warmer than we used to know. And you can imagine the stresses that it has. And of course, it's the overall change, but it is the weather extremes that make us particularly vulnerable. The number of victims of floods, the extreme heat waves, impacts of on health of people, the droughts on the other side, the forest fires that are becoming more and more regular. These are all putting stress also on our water resources. So what the new strategy is supposed to do is to have a bird's eye perspective on how we can do better in governance, how we can govern our resources better. Now, of course, with the European framing, but also cooperation among the members of the EU. So that's one area. And I again recall that most of the European countries probably have bilateral agreements on transboundary water management, which are one of the most complex agreements to delineate the rights and obligations. Then the next important part is how we can invest in more water resilience, and that will be for my colleague from the European Investment Bank to talk about what we have achieved so far and how we can do better and smarter. Talking about smarter, we have new means. We have the development of the IT. We can use artificial intelligence. If you look at the leakages of water, they are still significant. They are in Europe anywhere between 8% and 57% of water gets lost in the system, and that we cannot afford, and we should be able to do something about it. Research and innovation is another important area. There's more we can do and more innovation that we can put forward. And as we are at a conference which is primarily looking at the security elements, we need to think about the water stress as a security risk and an accelerator, like climate change overall. So it is something which comes along with the other risks, and we don't have the luxury of a choice of saying, well, now we'll deal with the hard security and let's not deal with for the moment with the things that we have been tackling in the past years. This is coming together. It's an accelerator. It's a cascading risk that needs to be part of the planning also when it comes to defense strategies, preparedness, and so forth. And final point, so this is basically feeding into the EU preparedness strategy, which is looking across those risks and seeing how we can be more risk resilient. And I'm coming from the climate side of the Commission, where we talk about resilience by design and climate resilience by design. And I would say that the same should apply for any planning for projects regarding water availability. We should embed it in the design. We should not repeat the mistakes that we have done in the past. We should not be rebuilding houses in the floodplain areas. But as humans, we tend to do the same mistakes, and I think we need to use all the collective wisdom to do better and smarter.
Thank you very much. An excellent overview. All clear. Maybe just to push you a bit more on just one issue, and that's the governance issue. You already said we have a number of, we have a whole legislative framework at the level of member states, also a framework at the level of the European Union. What's the biggest game changer that the initiative is bringing about in terms of the existing arrangements? If you had to identify one or two things, which would you highlight?
I think the highlight is really to make use of the tools that we haven't had when we planned the legislation, when the legislation was adopted. So to really be able to find the blind spots. I think that we are getting better in involving multiple stakeholders, in involving the levels of governance. And when we talk about water, an essential part of it is the municipalities and the operation of municipal water systems, but also bringing that multi-layer governance together with the technology that is available at the service of going smarter. And I think the other important aspect is the realization of the degree of the risk that this means, and in the broader context of changing climate, we can see that the risk is very much economic risk, and that we have a choice to be smarter and prevent the economic losses, and these are the losses for the whole society, and we can afford to be smarter, and we should be, because it has a very concrete economic impact. And I'm not, as you noticed, I'm not speaking about the ecological impacts, which are also important, but it is very much people's issue, and it's an economic issue.
Thank you. I'm glad you highlighted the tools, because in the end we have to talk about how do we make this work. And for that we need resources, we need money. And I'm glad we have two gentlemen to help us with this issue. Let me pass the floor to Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Kyriacos Kakouris. And basically, how does the EIB plan to work together with this new strategy? What are the specific tools that you have and will have at your disposal, and how you can support the overall efforts to really make sure that we are more resilient when it comes to the use of water, the conservation, but also protection?
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. First of all, allow me to express my gratitude to the organizers to put on the agenda and giving us the opportunity to discuss the issue of water. I mean, you mentioned before the importance of water. It's for all of us very obvious that water is the most precious public good we have, but nowadays it's also one of the most pressing challenges that we face. Allow me a personal reflection to say that I'm coming from Cyprus. I grew up in Cyprus, and we are sometimes in the summers we used to have water only 2-3 hours once or twice a week. Since I was a kid, I remember my father, my grandfather making stories about long droughts that really tough years, or to the other extreme, floodings. And this was the nature of Cyprus for decades. The government of Cyprus really invested, and I'm not a politician, I don't say, it's not going to do, really invested billions over the decades since the independence in order to save the last drop of water. And, but still, this is not enough. Today, I mean, today the government is taking measures to cut the water to farmers. And it's because it's the third year in a row that not sufficient rain we have. So all these investments, almost 20 billion euros investments, if the water dams are empty, you cannot really do much. I was in a conference in Kazakhstan 3 weeks ago. Again, we were discussing water. Kazakhstan is a large country. In some areas, they have droughts. In some areas, they have flooding. And in the conference, I was the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization was giving a keynote speech before me. And actually, I thought that we did everything wrong in Cyprus. Like if we face the problems today, I mean, it seems that we did everything wrong. Is this a case? I mean, this is. I was wondering. I came from the Ministry of Finance, and I knew the figures. What we spent. The thing is, we didn't do much wrong. Okay, at a certain stage, instead maybe of building so many water dams, probably we had to go earlier to desalination. But desalination is still a solution that it's very expensive for the farmers, and this is the key issue that the government of Cyprus has to face, and within our policies also of the EU, within the EU, to see how we are going to deal with that. I cannot imagine any farmer in any place in Europe or in the world, I mean, it's really not to be able to cultivate its land and not to produce the products. I cannot imagine myself not to taste the food coming from agriculture because of the lack of water. Under these circumstances, I have to say, yes, at the European Investment Bank, since last year, we put water along with our climate change policy as a priority. We always financed water projects, but we thought really to intensify. First of all, to go along with the water resilience strategy by from a commission announced last week, 2 weeks ago, I don't remember exactly, and really to come and support it with our financial tools and instruments. At the same time, we also put agriculture as a priority because we have to come closer to the farmers and support them in order to modernize their irrigating systems, to give them access to finance, to give them tools really to deal with the climate change. And climate change in the field of water is the most important thing. We have many. It's our traditional, let's say, financial instruments are the ones that we are using for water too, but we specialized or we are focusing now on the way really to help the governments, the local governments, to address the issues mentioned before. I mean, it's the leakages are huge in almost everywhere in Europe. This is an issue of everywhere. An ex-minister of France told me that she was really surprised when she was a minister to find out that the leakage in Paris until today is more than 50%. As I said, I'm in Cyprus, I'm very sensitive about water, but from Luxembourg, when I traveled to Belgium, to Brussels, I'm surprised to see that in the hotels in Brussels, they have these signs that save water. We used to have it in Cyprus for a long time ago, they disappeared. And they told me, no, it's a major issue the water is a major issue in Belgium. It's an issue in Luxembourg, where it's almost, let's say the Mediterranean, living in Luxembourg, we think that it never stops raining. But they have issues. They have structural issues. They have leakages. They have a lot of work to do on management, the way they manage. They are telling me they are 110 entities in Luxembourg to manage water. So yes, we have to do a lot on management, and we are going to, as a bank, we are going to approve our own water program next week. Just getting together with the Commission. Definitely, we are going to ask more money, but to my opinion, it's not the money. I mean, our program, it says that the next 3 years, we are going to finance around 15 billion euros of water projects, which investments are much more. But to my opinion, it's not the money. The thing is that we have to really make aware the people, the countries, to deal with the issue, because it's, as I said, in many countries, I said my experiences from Cyprus, similar. It's Calabria in Italy. It's in many parts of southern Europe, and also in many parts of the rest of the world. As at the EIB, we don't concentrate just on Europe, but also outside Europe. Our program, it says that we want not any household not to have access to water, clean water, fresh water, to sanitation, and access to farmers and utilize it, and also at the same time to give the opportunity to the European companies to really to perform and to operate inside the Europe, outside the Europe. 40% of the companies dealing with water are the European ones, and we are targeting, we are intending really to assist them in their efforts to scale up.
Thank you very much for that overview, and I also like the personal touch from Cyprus, because this is really the best way to make this a political issue. And I'm glad you said it isn't just the money. We have to find a way how to get this issue to the people, to the public, and make sure everybody is serious about it. But at the end of the day, it is also about money. If we want to make it work, we need to mobilize the financial resources. And it's clear that the Commission is going to work with the European Investment Bank, but also we need other actors. And I'm very pleased to have on the stage here the CEO and the president of a newly founded H2O fund, which is focused precisely on this issue, how we can make sure that indeed our societies are more resilient when it comes to dealing with water. Vazil, Hudák, pleasure to have you, and please tell us a bit about the fund, but also about the way the fund can work in tandem with the initiative, with the EIB and other institutions to make sure that indeed the people on the ground, the municipalities, the local governments, but also the governments get serious about this issue and start tackling it in a very practical, hands-on way. Because the best way in the end is to show that there are successful projects. And I know people are sensitive about resources, including water. It is a public resource, but it's also clear we need public-private partnerships when we want to make sure that this resource is used properly, conserved, and sustained. Vazil, please.
Thank you, Vlado, and a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for joining this panel. I do believe that water is one of the most undervalued assets we have globally as a mankind. You know, we use it every day, but sometimes we take it for certain and don't pay enough attention. So I'm very happy that the European Commission came up with the water resilience strategy. I think this is a very important document and the right way to move forward. If I may, before I go into the fund and the private sector aspect, just a few comments on the kind of the macro level side. And as I worked both at the national and European levels of public sector, I have some comments to make. And actually, it's very nice to be in the private sector side. I do not have to wear a tie and can be more informal and share my experience. You know, in Europe, and I think those who have been following Europe, basically most of the major integration issues and initiatives happen as a result of a crisis. If you look at the start of the energy union, it followed the energy crisis, gas crisis. Yeah. The banking union followed the financial crisis. And in a way, we have this kind of process of moving from, in the European Union, moving from crisis to chaos and then to suboptimal solutions. And unfortunately, this is who we are. And Vlado, you know, we were in the beginning at breakfast with people from the Southeast Europe, and we were talking about the accession process for the European Union and a lot of frustrations among the countries like Serbia or Macedonia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, that there are never-ending discussions about
North Macedonia, yes.
and nothing is really happening. And there was this question, you know, should we have another Balkan war to speed up the process? So in a way, it seems to me that water is in this category. You know, we all understand that it is important, but we don't really pay enough attention on the European level. Strategy is great, but it's always a big issue on the European level, and I think Mr. Dusik, he was also in the national governments, so he understands that there is always this, also quite often, disconnect between big strategies and proclamation on the European level and then implementation on the national and the local level. So this implementation is extremely important, and it is important that these values and approaches which are in the strategy are translated into the national level and into the implementation on the national level. And this is, I think, important also for the private sector. I mean, one reality in Europe and in different countries is that there is a huge underinvestment in water. Basically, the infrastructure is in very bad shape. The fact that there is this leakage, which was mentioned here, 55, 60%, whatever it is a result of the fact that there is not enough money going into water, into the infrastructure, and this is very, very expensive exercise. Just in Slovakia, the country I know the best, the kind of historical lack of investment is around 10 billion euro, which is a lot for the country with the GDP around 100 billion euros. So this is the situation which we have in Europe. We have the situation with the huge demands on the budgets. The defense is growing. The situation in terms of debts and deficits of national budgets is not good. So the outcome of this is that the investment into water and what is needed for the water and water management cannot be done just by using public funds. So the national budgets, EU funds, even EIB, however big it is, it's not sufficient, and that's why we have to look for ways how we bring private sector into the water management, and how we create different kind of public-private partnerships. Now, what it requires to bring private sector into the water management and water investments is, on one hand, clear regulations. Investors want, especially in such heavy long-term assets, fixed assets as water and water infrastructure, they want to know that the regulation is longer term, is predictable, and it is future-proof, that different changes will not influence the investment structure and the cash flow, etc., which is part of the investment. I think here, Europe should be much more, and I think this is something which probably should be part of the implementation of the strategy, is to have more impact on the national regulators, because the national regulators, they are, they don't have a clear framework from the European level. What are the limits for their behavior? And unfortunately, national legislators are very much politicized. They are obviously important in terms of the government policies, and that's why there is simply too much politics in the water management and in the regulations. So if we want to bring more private sector and much more private investment, we have to de-risk water and water management, and this is it also means to depoliticize this area as much as possible. And another aspect, and this goes into my position as the president of the H2O fund, is what was also mentioned by Mr. Dusik, but also by Kyriacos. This is the importance of R&D, because water, however basic material and asset it is important to bring innovations into this, to make sure that digitization, even AI, etc., is implemented in the water management. And this was actually the main motivation why Eastern Slovak Water Management Company decided to create this H2O fund. So I was very happy to get engaged, because it's quite unusual, I would say, innovative initiative to create such a so-called captive fund by a company which is owned by municipalities. The company serves around 1 million citizens in Eastern Slovakia. And especially today, these days when there are not too many good news from Slovakia, I think this is one of the positive examples what can be done, kind of bottom-up. And the fund itself is registered in the Czech Republic as so-called SICAF fund. It is the fund which will invest into different type of R&D, innovative technological companies and projects around Europe. So it's not just for Central Europe, it's really European, including UK and Israel, to seek innovations, new approaches, new solutions which can be utilized obviously by the founder, by the Eastern Slovak Water Management Company, but also in the broader context in the European water management to make it more efficient and eventually to provide to the citizens water which will be cleaner and at the same time which will be more efficient in terms of the water management. So this is who we are, and we are starting. We have around 50 million euro as a starting capital, and looking forward to work with many of those who are also here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. You also answered one of the questions, which was who is behind this fund? So that's been ticked off as a box. We have about 15 minutes, and I will try to speed it up, and let's try to have a bit of more of a ping pong. I think this is a good and important we laid it all out. Number of questions on Slido. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to ask a question from the audience directly? If I see any raised hand, please just indicate. I will keep an eye on the audience, so please feel free to do that. But we answered that question on the fund. Let me pick up a couple of the issues which have to do with the potential of water for conflict, because water is scarce. Water will be increasingly scarce. across Europe. And the question is, how can we turn this into a positive agenda? How can we the cross-border water resilience initiatives, how can they be used as a prototype for broader regional integration in climate security? That's a question to everyone, that I think especially to Mr. Dusik. And I would extend it even a bit beyond, because this is not just about the EU 27. You already mentioned Switzerland, which is the European Economic Community, but it is also about the broader European space, the Western Balkans, Southeast Europe, more broadly, the candidate countries for your membership. So also, how can we extend what the Commission is preparing as the initiative to the EU candidate countries? Let's try with those two questions. Mr. Dusik, the floor is yours. But if any of you want to jump in, please feel free to do so.
Sure. Well, very briefly, I would, regarding the bilateral and, let's say, sub-regional cooperation, another example of functioning mechanism are the so-called river commissions, the Commission for the Protection of the Elbe or Danube or Odra River in the region, the Rhine Commission, and so forth. These are very complex legal mechanisms which help countries to work out the balanced solutions, and which are preventing the conflict around the use or pollution of water. And I think this is something which has very much contributed to the development of the body of the European water legislation. Of course, you cannot. It's not one size fits all. The problems that you have with water in Cyprus, you would have different problems in Poland, for instance, or Belgium, for that matter. So it needs to be. The objective should not be that the European Union from Brussels edicts that it's going to be exactly uniform in each member state. It's not the purpose, but the purpose is also to look at where we can remove barriers, where we can simplify. And very often, when we talk about the European bureaucratic legislation, we need to look all the way down to the end of the process, and many of the barriers are actually existing at national or subnational levels. And I'm very convinced that in the area of water management there's quite a bit that can be done with thinking smarter, with being informed by others' approaches. On the wider European space, absolutely, one priority for this Commission is the enlargement of the European Union. So all the potential members of the EU need to absorb the European legislation, and the water legislation is a big part of it. And again, if you see what's happening either in the West Balkans or in countries like Moldova, which apparently is the hottest country on the European continent. So this will be very much in the center of how they can embrace the European legislation, but also how Europe can help them as the future members of the EU to cope with the challenge that water management brings.
Excellent. Let me bring in the European Investment Bank, Kyriacos. What is the bank planning to do with respect to these candidate countries? Moldova has been mentioned, the Western Balkans more broadly, the initiatives which you're planning to apply to the EU 27 or the economic area space will extend, and to what extent also to the wider European space? Because obviously we need to safeguard Europe in a holistic way.
Definitely. I mean, the European Investment Bank is supporting the accession process of Western Balkans, other countries, and the neighboring countries. It's for us, it's a priority, along with the support of the Commission. We're active there, and we're financing in all the projects in order to facilitate the accession of these countries, and in order to get closer to the EU. On cross-border, I have to say that it's my experience is also, because I oversee Central Asia, we see there that the countries are really willing to cooperate, and we see them cooperating large hydropower projects, which is also in the way they manage the water much better. But for Europe, I think it's more than, let's say, cross-border cooperation, because I consider that this exists, or this is, in a way, it's most solved over the years. For Europe, what we face is what we mentioned right now. I mean, we have outdated water systems that we invested 50 years ago, and we never really look at them. And since we have this, the climate change, we have we have to face the climate threat. I mean, this is how we have to focus. I have mayors talking to me saying about this issue of the water. Yes, we need to invest, but you know, we don't have money. And I'm telling them, it's look, and they are afraid to borrow money. I have to say, there are small municipalities that they never borrow money. They don't have any debt, probably in this area too. And I tell them, look, the European Investment Bank, now we're calling ourselves the EU Climate Bank. Before, we were calling ourselves the European Long-Term Financial Institution, because we provide loans, long-term loans, which really give the ability to finance with sustainability a long-term project in order to reflect the life of the project. And this is what I'm telling. And also, as is mentioned by Vazil, it's the cooperation. I mean, we have long a history for us as a bank to really mobilize the private sector, but nobody can do it alone. I mean, nobody can. We have to get together with the funding from the Commission, national funds, private sector, our loans, as I said, long-term loans that really have to finance the infrastructure of water, and also we have to finance the resilience. We have to be prepared. I remember in 2023, if you remember the floods in Greece, I mean, I remember after a few months later, a mayor of a Romanian mayor, I remember mentioning that, you know, the results were not that horrific because they took measures. But still, nature, we cannot face it. We have to prepare, because we don't know that something more worse is getting. So, on one hand, modernizing existing systems, really saving the water, definitely giving access to clean water to everybody, but also be prepared. I mean, be prepared for the other extreme, because we do have the two extremes. I mean, it's mentioned before about the global warming. I mean, they say it's 1.5 degrees per year, something like that. I feel it in Cyprus sometimes it's 5 degrees every year, more and more hot. I mean, unfortunately. So it's time to work together, to my opinion, and to really look the issue.
Excellent. And one of the points which you highlighted, work together, yes, cooperation, yes, but there is a huge investment gap having to do with the fact that the countries, the municipalities, the regions have not invested in the infrastructure which was built decades ago. Great to hear about the fund, the European Investment Bank, but clearly this is not enough. And the key question is here, it is also not an easy political discussion, because it is a public good, but clearly just like we are discussing defense as a public good and trying to unlock a lot of private capital at the moment in Europe, how can we discuss water resilience issue in a similar way to make sure that we indeed unlock that private capital, that people are ready to borrow, people are ready to invest, and it is done in a public-private partnership. We have several questions which sort of allude to the fact that water is a public good. It shouldn't be misused by private actors. At the same time, we cannot protect it as a public good without the private sector. So this is a big dilemma, and let me bring in Vazil in that, but also then Jan Dusik, because I think this is the key issue which we should still explore in the next 5 minutes. Let me see if anybody wants to ask a question from the audience. Okay, Vazil, please.
You are right. It's a sensitive issue, yeah, because water is for everybody. It's a public good, and each government is very concerned about how this pricing is established. What does it mean for the people, for the voters? Yes, eventually. But look, when there was an energy crisis, and as a result of this, huge increases in the price of energy, and people accepted that as a reality, because there was a crisis and everybody understood that energy has a cost. And again, I'm going back to this issue that maybe we need a water crisis for people to understand that this is something that we have to value much more than it is now. Hopefully we'll not get there, but it is an issue of regulations. Basically, the price of the water is established based on the regulatory framework, which is managed by the national regulatory agencies or institutions. And it's also part of public education. I think people need to understand that water doesn't come just from nothing. There is a process and there is investment which has to go into this, because if it does not, then the quality of the water will be worse and the situation will be worse as well. So I think this regulatory and the educational aspect are very important. And then I think we need to help investors. As I mentioned, private sector, private investors have to get engaged. One very, I think, important tool of raising funds for water management companies are issuance of bonds. There have been already quite successful issuances of bonds, so-called green or blue bonds by different water management companies in Europe, but it's not enough. And the main issue is, again, the risk, because these companies, usually the cash flow and the profits are very, very small because of the low level of price of the water. But they are long-term cash flows. Yes? So basically, investors have to see that these are predictable, long-term cash flows, and they also would appreciate some kind of guarantee. So for example, and this is a specific proposal to EIB and to the European Commission, if there was a guarantee program by the EIB, which would guarantee issuance of such green or blue bonds by the water management companies, I think this would help a lot, because this would help to de-risk from the point of view of private investors such bonds. And if EU was able to create a critical raw materials fund, why not a water fund? What's the difference? Yeah, it's just the issue of crisis again. Yeah, so I think we need to be a little more ambitious, and we need to find a way how to encourage private sector to be more active.
Thank you very much. Let me pick up on one other issue which has been raised, and that is the fact that the technological change, the technological revolution which we are living right now may require a lot more water. When it comes to storage of data, AI, the cooling systems, of course, water will become an essential commodity for this, and we will need more of it. Maybe my last question to Mr. Dusik, how is the Commission reflecting on this? And more broadly, if you can also add any reflections on the issue how to unlock the public partnerships when it comes to financing. We've got a couple minutes, so please a brief response.
Yeah, very briefly on the technologies. Definitely, let's use the potential to see where we have the missing links, where we have the blind spots, where we are allowing the leakage, and to address it, and to help us better manage and give the decision making and planning tools of the 21st century. Regarding the price, what is free of charge is not valued enough. So I think that the fair price of water, and I would stress the fairness here, that each of the users of the types of use needs to pay the fair price of the usage. And that usage, just to give another example of a risk, for instance, if you have a nuclear power plant that needs to be cooled, and if the river, the water in the river is too warm, then you need to switch off the nuclear power plant because you are not able to cool the reactor anymore. So yet another example of how these are connected. On unlocking the finance, definitely the public money should be primarily used to unlock the private part of the resources. I think we can see it on the municipal water provision and water purification infrastructure, the public-private models. It has gone through a bumpy road, but I think that now it's more or less settled space. But we need to be smart about finding funds overall for climate resilience. We have having the talks with the European Investment Bank, but also how we can generate the private funding for investing into the era of climate change.
Thank you very much. For 30 seconds, I'll bring in the Vice President of the EIB.
Just because I wanted to clarify, among our financing instruments, definitely we have guarantees in order to de-risk the projects. But I think because the guarantees mentioned, but also I think that the states also have to provide more guarantees for this kind of project, for this essential, for the water. Because in a way I see that government guarantees were demonized, and I think it's about to bring them back. I mean, I remember from the Tatra meeting, it was ex-Prime Minister of Hungary that mentioned that, and I think we have to go. European Commission works with that. InvestEU is government. It's working with guarantees to the European Investment Bank. Before we have the Juncker plan, which will work with the guarantees. Just a final word. The economics of water really demands courage, collaboration, and commitment. And I think here, in getting together, we have to do that.
Thank you very much for that. I think we've also, with this session, helped unlock a much bigger discussion. I hope we can continue this within GLOBSEC, and indeed, this is a strategic issue. So I'm very pleased we had a chance to have this panel. I want to say that for a while we will have a coffee break outside, so I want to invite you to the coffee break, and then this stage will continue with the next panel at 10 minutes past 11, and the panel will be focused on the fractured tech stack, US, China, and the complex world of global tech policies. Before we move to the break, I want to thank you for being with us, and I want to ask you to help me thank our three distinguished panelists who were with us, Mr. Kyriacos Kakouris, Jan Dusik, and Vazil Hudák. It's been a pleasure guiding you through this, and indeed, let's pick this up as an issue of strategic importance. Water deserves it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vladimir.